There is a survival skill older than agriculture, older than organized warfare, and, well, even older than metalworking. It is the art of scavenger survival, the ability to turn discarded material, broken objects, and natural debris into resilient tools that keep you alive. For the first minute of this guide, just think about how history's toughest survivors operated. Hunter-gatherers built cutting edges from river rocks and bone fragments. Medieval peasants patched farm tools with scrap iron from shattered ploughs. Soldiers in World War II shaped stoves from ration tins. Cold War partisans repaired gear using radio casing, wire, and vehicle parts left behind. Survival was rarely about having polished gear. It was about recognizing value in objects the untrained eye considered useless. This forgotten form of resourcefulness matters because in real emergencies, gear breaks, packs get lost, and supplies run out. When you remove the comfort of modern tools, you return to a form of survival that depends not on equipment but on awareness and adaptability. So, let's move directly into the systems, methods, and historical lessons that show how to turn nothing into something useful. The foundation of scavenger survival is learning to identify material value before you need it. In every era, survivors stayed alive by being alert to material opportunities. Pre-industrial societies collected flint nodules, antler prongs, and driftwood because each material had predictable properties. Flint fractured into sharp blades. Antler absorbed shock better than wood. Driftwood resisted rot. In more modern historical contexts, resistance fighters looked for copper wire, steel springs, and glass because, well, each could be reshaped, sharpened, or repurposed into something functional. Today, this translates into training your eye to notice categories instead of objects. If you understand material behavior, how metal bends, how bones carve, how plastic melts, how hardwood resists impact, you can adapt almost anything into a tool. A broken car antenna becomes a fishing spear. A discarded can becomes a stove or water basin. Even a snapped zipper pull can be reshaped into a makeshift awl. This is not creativity for creativity's sake. It is really functional awareness that keeps you alive. Scavenged cutting tools were always the backbone of improvised survival. History shows that every effective survivor prioritized blades, even crude ones. In the Paleolithic world, people crafted cutting edges by striking flint until it fractured along controlled lines. In North America, bison hunters shaped bone splinters into cutting wedges for hide processing. In the trenches of World War II, soldiers sharpened can lids to slice cloth and cordage. The principle was always the same. Cutting ability makes every other task easier. In a modern setting, you can do the same with scavenged materials. A piece of broken glass wrapped in cloth becomes a serviceable cutting edge for food prep or shaving wood. The jagged ring of a metal can, flattened and honed on concrete, forms a workable scraping tool. So, a snapped hacksaw blade segment can actually be taped to a stick for a lightweight knife. It's a handy little trick, really. The goal isn't to replicate a commercial blade, but rather to produce a cutting edge that performs its task long enough to solve the problem in front of you. That's really what matters most. To practice this, try shaping a simple scraper from a bottle cap, or, turn a tin can lid into a safe-edged cutter by smoothing the grip area. Give it a go and see how you get on. Repetition builds confidence, and confidence becomes capability when your real tools fail. Cordage and fastening materials often come from sources most people overlook. Humans have always needed binding material. Early societies used roots, tendon strips and plant fibres. Shipwreck survivors used sail canvas threads and tarred rope. Even Cold War-era civilians in rural Europe repaired gear using telephone wire stripped from abandoned poles. In each case, cordage came from scavenging, not manufacturing. It's really about making do with what you can find out there. For a modern survival scenario, the most common sources of cordage are synthetic. Paracord is ideal, but its absence does not stop you. Plastic bags can be twisted into surprisingly strong rope, and shoelaces can lash shelter poles. There are always options if you look around honestly. Wire from old electronics can bind snares or reinforce pack straps. Even clothing fibres can be braided into emergency cord if you really need it. It's all about a bit of creativity and resourcefulness, isn't it? Understanding this means that you never look at an object for what it was, but, for what it can become. One practical exercise, really, is to practice twisting cordage from a grocery bag into a rope that can hold several kilograms. You will quickly realize just how effective improvised binding really is. A container is not a luxury in survival. It is absolutely essential. Ancient people, they used bark hide and even gourds. Early explorers, on the other hand, repurposed metal tins for their needs. And refugees, across the 20th century, they often relied on food cans for boiling water, storing supplies, or even shielding embers. A metal can, believe it or not, can handle boiling, cooking, scooping and carrying. A glass jar that can store dry goods or, if you like, serve as a lantern. Even a strip of aluminum from a soda can becomes a windscreen for a stove, just like that. Fire-making tools have, similar patterns. Stone sparked against steel creates ignition. A broken lighter, it still produces sparks long after it runs out of fuel. Batteries touched to steel wool ignite instantly. This is why scouts, partisans and nomads kept any spark-producing object they could find. So here's a practical tip for you. Just try carrying a so-called dead lighter on your next hike and use it as a spark source. You might be surprised at how useful it can still be, even when it seems spent. Sparks are, sparks. And understanding that simple fact honestly is what teaches us resilience. Scavenger survival, really worked, because it relied on systems thinking, not just a single tool. It's about seeing the bigger picture and how everything fits together. You know, a blade works better with cordage. Cordage, in turn, supports shelter poles. And shelters, well, they block wind and heat loss. Containers let you purify water, which is absolutely vital. Fire tools keep you warm, cook your food, and disinfect. Every item, really, supports another. This is why the art of scavenger survival cannot be dismissed as primitive. It is structured. It is strategic. It's a form of engineering, really, practiced by folks who understood the relationship between need and resource. They didn't just make do, they solved problems with what was at hand. The real lesson here is that self-reliance, well, it begins when you stop waiting around for perfect tools. You just get on with it, using whatever you've got. Modern gear, sure, it's comfortable, but if you look back, history shows us that people survived with far less, built from the scraps of their environment, you know. The art isn't about being clever or artistic, it's about being capable when things get harsh. And, honestly, when your predictable tools just don't work out. So, if you want more historically grounded breakdowns like this, do subscribe to Backyard Wisdom, share this video, and help keep real survival knowledge alive for the next generation.